Mike's hot.
And welcome back for some of you. And some of you are just hopping in here. We appreciate that. We are live here at the Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis. I'm here with Max Starks of the Steelers Radio Network and, of course, Matt Williamson of the Steelers.
Just jumping in.
Just jumping back in here with Jerry Dulac jumping out. I'm Dale Lolley. And, this is, hour 6 or whatever we are here.
Yeah.
I can't
Rolling
keep track
along.
of it all.
Yeah,
But
We're still here.
We're still here.
Yeah,
and
that's
we'll
all
be
you
here
need to
until
know.
4 o'clock. Max will be here with us for the next hour as well. Guys.
Then we get some alone time.
Then we get,
Yeah, let's get these guys out of the way. Yeah.
Anyways.
What's shaking?
So let's talk a little bit of Combine here. We didn't, of course, get to hear from Omar Khan today. That's not going to happen. But a lot of the other GMs and coaches are talking on the podium today. Eric DeCosta with the Ravens, I don't know if you guys saw this, said that they plan, if they don't get something done with Justin Madubuike before March 5th, they plan on putting the franchise tag on him.
Okay.
Smart decision.
Yeah.
Yeah, his production alone says, we might want to keep that guy. Might want to just maybe.
Well, so now we see that the Bengals have tagged T. Higgins.
Yeah.
You're looking at it's probably going to end up being the tag for Madubuike.
They're not.
He's
gonna
not
get
going
that
anywhere.
number.
Yeah. So that's 2 of the 4 teams in the division. The Steelers, of course, they don't have anybody really that's in that situation. That leaves Cleveland. I don't know that Cleveland has anybody right now that they would look at tagging.
No, I don't think so.
They also don't have the money.
They don't have the money to do it. Yeah.
That's tagged.
Because if they're paying the quarterback $64 million next year.
Yeah.
But that franchise tag, to me, and as somebody who's gone through this yourself, Max, I've always said that the franchise tag, once you use that, it now sets the market value for the player. Because now as the player, you're saying, this is what I'm going to make fully guaranteed. So this is our starting point for negotiations.
Well, this is the floor, not the ceiling.
Right.
I mean, there's a hard stop. Like this is my assessed value for an annual basis. So if you want
you put it on me.
You put it on me. So let's multiply it. And let's keep that there if that's what you want to do. But know that I'm not going below that. There's no hometown discount once you add the tag. You had hometown discount in open negotiations. It didn't work. Now we start here, and we can only go up from here.
Yeah, so, I mean, I know a lot of players don't love getting tagged. And the ones that do like it are the ones that have not made a ton of money already. You're a 4th-round pick, blah, blah. And Madubuike, in this case, was not a 1st-round pick. He has not got paid big. He's about to. But you're right. I mean, the team shows their hand. Like, I think you're worth this, and I'm happy to do it. Well, that means you probably will give me more. Especially once we put it over 2-3 years and a bump like that. So I don't know if the franchise tag is as terrible as people think for the players.
It's not the only place where it becomes that limbo area. And this is kind of where I was because I got tagged 3 years in a row.
Oh, okay.
So that's where I hated it.
Yeah.
Because it was all salary. And so
no bonus.
No bonus. You get to play it out throughout the year, and you're paying taxes in every city you play. So the year I got tagged, we're playing in California twice. We're playing in New York. Like I didn't get.
And that's the part we were talking about.
Nobody
that last
talks
night.
about that
I didn't realize that. So if you get the signing bonus in Pittsburgh, you're just paying that
one
that's
time. One-time lump, and they split the signing bonus over 2 years, so it's even better because it kind of lessens that hit of what's coming out in a chunk. Whereas you play it out during the season. You're paying your Pittsburgh taxes every time you play in Pittsburgh. You're paying your Cincinnati taxes. You're paying your Cleveland taxes. You're paying Maryland taxes. You're paying wherever else you go except for Florida, Tennessee, and Texas. You're paying taxes everywhere you go. And think about slicing that into 1/17. That's a large chunk, especially when you think about what Justin Madubuike is going to get.
Yeah, right.
In that $20 million range. That's a lot of hands out there. It's like, hey, we need this road filled, so bring me your taxes.
Yeah.
So,
I hadn't thought of that angle.
Yeah, it's interesting, and you had the transition tag placed on you as well. We don't see that one used as much anymore.
No, I think Steve Hutchinson really made it a very unfavorable tag. So why I had to go through it and be the one that actually played through that transition tag still beyond me, because teams look at that tag and it's like, if I really want that guy, it's wording because when Steve Hutchinson got his transition tag, for those that don't know, Steve Hutchinson was on the Seattle Seahawks, and Walter Jones was also on that. So both of them Hall of Famers, but, left tackle makes more than left guard. And so, Walter Jones was the highest paid offensive lineman on that squad. So when the Vikings wanted him, they were going to pay him. Seattle wanted to match whatever it was. Just say, hey, set your market. We're going to go meet it so we can keep you. That's why they put the transition tag out there, because we don't have a fairly assessed value. But what the Vikings got over on them was they also put a little line that said, and he will be the highest paid offensive lineman on our roster.
Yeah, right.
And
Seattle couldn't match.
And Seattle couldn't match that because now
the poison pill.
Yeah, the poison pill in the contract. So now they're like, well, we're acceptable of his rate, but Walter's making more.
Right.
So if he has to be the highest paid, now we got to go above that, whereas Vikings get to stay here where they set it, and now we're in trouble. So that was one that was very intriguing. Yeah, you just beat them by a cent, and you get to stay with the team. But like you said, words mean everything, and that's what it was. So I didn't have that suitor that was like, oh my gosh, I know the Cardinals wanted me, because that's when Wiz and Russ and them went down there, that previous year. So they're like, yeah, we want to get you. And I got tagged at the last minute, and like, we'll just wait a year until you're a real free agent, because you're not going to get tagged twice. Wrong. So
you don't
just
see that
wait.
much anymore either.
No,
I think Cousins was the last one that's been 2 in a row.
Yeah, that was 2 in a row, and it had to play out, but it ballooned so much. And I think for me, I didn't get the balloon from one tag to the next, because it was transition to franchise, as opposed to double franchise, like non-exclusive to exclusive. That's when you get the 20% premium rider put on it. So I was just like, well, I guess I'm here. Yet I'd love to not pay it in taxes every week. So it's very interesting how they use it. But like you said, transition, it's kind of gone by the wayside, because like you said, if there's a guy we really want, just give him the franchise tag, because it's not going to come up that
why let somebody else negotiate the deal for you?
Exactly. Let's try and control it in-house, and then figure out a way after that, because we now have 365 more days to try and figure this out.
News from the combine here as well. It doesn't look like there are going to be any running backs tagged this year. We saw a couple tagged last year, Saquon Barkley, one of them. I think the tag price was, we went over those last week, it was like 12?
Yeah, it was 11 something, I think. I'd read under 12 right in that neighborhood.
Does that kind of surprise you? I mean, I know everybody says, well, running backs don't matter. They don't matter until you don't have one.
Exactly. Exactly. They don't matter until you see that guy walk, and you're like, what's our contingency plan? You look back, you're like, yeah, I got beef jerky back there.
Yeah. Giants minus Barkley is not so rosy.
No, it's not.
Right.
And you're already paying Daniel Jones, who is relying on Saquon Barkley to add to his value. And you take him away, he can't create. That puts you in a hole. So it's going to be really interesting to see how the Giants react to that, because like you said, you don't want to pay that 20% premium, and now you would drive up the running back tag even more so on an ill-used tag on top of that.
Which could be interesting down the road for Najee Harris.
Yeah.
If the Steelers are looking at doing that, because I know Matt's always been of the feeling here, and of course the Steelers are going to have to pick up his 5th-year option here, make a decision on that. I expect that they will. It's like $6 million. They have to do that by sometime in May. But when you've got that first-round running back, you really have 6 years of control of that guy.
Yeah.
Which could be a whole running back's lifespan.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. By the time he's done, and he doesn't see that second, because it's really tough for a running back to see the second contract. But and I mean, even look at that. I mean, you think about halfway through last year, people didn't want them to pick up Najee's 5th year because of Jaylen Warren. So it's funny how you fall in and out of love with them, but you realize you've got to have a guy that can take the brunt, especially in our division, right? The AFC North is a very physical, defense-heavy division. You need the pounding guy that can go in there and be the battering ram.
And he's a mutter.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, he's going to keep the feet churning until you take his legs out. So you need that guy in our division. Think about what Joe Mixon was young in his career, and how he played in Baltimore. Went through 17 different running backs in that same span. They thought J.K. Dobbins was going to be that guy, and they ended up just being Lamar Jackson. And then Gus Edwards, the dancing, the Irish Celtic dancer. But even though he's not going to be there anymore, because his lifespan and his usefulness has deteriorated. So it's going to be really interesting to see how you do it. I mean, the running back class this year is
not great.
Okay.
Yeah. There won't be one in the first round.
There definitely won't be one in the first round. And I would gather to think there really won't be one until midway through, at best, the second round, before you really start seeing. I think there'll be a heavy in day 3 for a lot of these teams. And even if you don't have the guy, you've got a committee or a consortium of guys that are going to fill that role because the onus is in the passing game. And that running back had better be able to catch out of the backfield if he wants any value high enough. Yeah. And he has to be a guy who can block. You have to be able to do it all. And we're not going to pay you a lot.
Yeah.
We're not going to pay you a lot on top of that. Hence why their number is so low for a franchise tag.
How has that changed since you played? See, I mean, you used to have the bell cow running back. You get your bell cow running back. Now it's committee stuff.
There were first rounders every year at that stage. That was common, right?
I mean, I think you think I was in the era with Adrian Petersons, right, of this world that were like, oh my God, I got to have this guy immediately, and I got to take him.
Marshawn Alexander,
Marshawn Lynch is in the same draft.
Yeah, Sean Alexander was a highly prized guy, and I also played with Jerome Bettis and Deuce Staley.
Yeah,
who you had your bell cow guy, and then you had the third. It was your every down back, and then your third down back. It was Jerome, and then it was Veron Haynes. A significant drop off on how they played, and then Willie Parker was an undrafted free agent on our squad, but you looked around everywhere else, and yes, there was a signature guy that was the guy for that team. And now you say, well, it might be this guy, it might be that guy. We got a couple of guys back here, right? And so now you start to see the second running back really gets just as much attention as the first running back in a 60-40 split. And teams aren't running it 40 times a game anymore. I mean, Derrick Henry's the last of that. And now he'll be a free agent because he probably won't fit into their scheme for usefulness. So it's funny how that position has taken such a hit, but yet it's still a necessity because every December, who are the teams that go to the playoffs? Who are the teams that successfully win the playoffs? The team that has that guy who can run the football. Kansas City, famously, right? You went and got Isaiah Pacheco. He runs like angry man, and that kid flourished in the playoffs. Christian McCaffrey, same thing. You trade for him. You find out this dude, when he's durable, he's a problem for teams, and he's the X factor. And you say, well, who do you have to stop? Well, we need to stop the running back. But in the regular season, first 15 weeks or so, it's like, we're going to pass our way out of this because the weather's still good. And I was like, I promise you, Miami wishes they had a big-time running back as opposed to splitting between Mostert and Devon Achane and, we could do this thunder and lightning. It's like, no, who's your bell cow guy? Who's going to actually run between the tackles when it's crappy weather, when the footing's not great, and I got to have 3 yards? Teams have gotten away from that, but yet they want it at the end of the year.
Yeah, we've been talking about Miami all year that, okay, what you're doing early in the season is great. You dropped, 60 or 70 on the Broncos. That's unbelievable. The scheme is phenomenal. But you're eventually going to go to Buffalo in December, or the Jets, or the Patriots,
or Kansas City in January when it's a freeze,
exactly.
State of emergency.
And you're just not built for it. And I think that's really short-sighted. You also mentioned the running back A and B, and I like where the Steelers are at because I'm not saying Warren is also an A, but the gap between them stylistically isn't Jerome to Zaraway. It's not a tell by any stretch. They all can catch the ball. They all can protect. They can all push a pow. They could handle 20, 25 carries if the other one happens to go down. I think it's a good situation.
Yeah, well, and it's enough variability that you can't necessarily play the same style for each of them because each of them present a different thing. Both of them like to run through the tackles, but one is a one-cut to get into that tackle zone. The other one's straight ahead bulldozing. And that presents a problem and a quandary for linebackers, right? Because am I a fast flow over-the-top linebacker or am I hang backdoor linebacker? Now I got to know which one do I have based on the personnel. It kind of changes how you play, and you kind of fake people out. So it gives a nice balance to it, and it's not like, for me, Veron's in there. They're not running between the tackles. Like he's blocking and he's catching a screen pass. Yeah, you don't want that tell. They keep it pretty balanced. So the Steelers are in a unique position. I think Arthur Smith's going to really love how he can deploy both of those guys because they also can put them in two-back sets.
Does it change how you block with those different backs?
No, it doesn't. I think that's the biggest thing is that both of them like to fit whatever's happening. So it's not like Lev Bell and D'Angelo Williams, right?
Yeah. They were completely different styles.
Completely different worlds, and it was like, oh, my God, how are we going to block? Okay, who's back there? Okay, so I got to block it like that. You don't have to think about that as an offensive lineman. They take what they're given. Najee may or may not see the cutback hole, may not even care about the backside cut. But Jalen is. So if I'm still blocking and that guy holds in the hole, I know Jalen's going to cut behind. If I hold in the hole and there's a sliver between my hip and the guard's hip, Najee's going right up that. He's treating it like a freeway. So you just have to do what you do as an offensive lineman. And that's the one thing I love. They don't change their blocking style based on who's in there. They just play the same, and the guys fit to them, which is a nice relationship to have between running back and O-line.
So we're talking schematics, and you mentioned earlier, too, about two backs on the field at the same time. I mean, pony package was a lot of what people call it. Arthur Smith did a lot of it. I mean, Bijan and Algier were out there a fair amount, or Cordero Patterson. Steelers didn't do a lot. They flirted with it early in the season, but we didn't see those two on the field together very much. All in all, as long as the non-ball carrier is a pretty good blocker, I don't have much problem with it. I mean, I think it's a good wrinkle. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree because, like you said, especially when you have so much pre-snap motion, right? All the window dressing that's coming with it now. And if you have both of them out there, like I said, that quandary, if I'm a backfill or if I'm a fast flow. Now it's like I don't know what to do in this play because they're both back there or they're both on the field and they're motioning one from the slot into the backfield. Now we got split backs. Oh, God, okay, left versus right. How do we do this? Or he's coming in fly motion right before the snap. Is it going to be an end-around type of deal, jet sweep? What are we going to do? It really puts the defense in a quandary to where you have to really shore up your edges, and guys have to be on alert for what's happening. And I think, like you said, having the guy out there for a snap and he's not touching the ball and he's blocking, that's fine by me.
He's not a 180-pound guy who's going to get run over either.
Yeah,
I mean,
he's not.
Stick his face in there.
He stick his face in the fan, especially Jalen Warren, because Jalen Warren is thick. He's lower body. So he can brace, and he creates natural leverage for a lot of your defensive ends on the backside or the safety off the edge. He can go run the seal and no problem at all. Or Najee vice versa. Najee can definitely go in there and be a fullback on any play. So I really like that, and I think the more anonymity that you give to your offensive scheme, like it presents as 11, but it's really 12, or it's 21 that looks like, like 12 personnel.
Right.
And that's
what the league's all about now.
The league's all about how can you be flexible. I think that's why a Connor Hayward is such a valuable piece because he can inline, he can lead from the eye, broken eye, he can lead from a wing position and do a lot of things. And then you still have Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington. So you can get in there and run a big package personnel. Say we're going to run 13 personnel. No problem. I like all three of these guys here.
Yeah, and they did that a lot down the stretch.
Yeah. And Connor can also play fullback, and he can take the dives on the short yardage stuff. So I love that flexibility. I think it's going to be really good for this team moving forward.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch how this all morphs this offseason here.
Yeah.
As Matt always says, teams tell you what they're thinking with the moves that they make. Well, if they don't feel they have the offensive pieces to run Arthur Smith's offense, they're going to go get those pieces.
Yes.
But if they feel like they have the pieces, they're not going to make any changes there.
Yeah, and also you're going to see and Andy Weidel and Sheldon White are really good about being in tune with what the coach's needs are. And they sat down, had extensive talks. Arthur, what's the schematics? What's the philosophy? What are the key things that you need?
Yeah.
Right? What are your linchpins and foundations for your offensive philosophy? Okay, now we start working towards that. Mason Cole didn't fit into that, hence why Mason Cole's not here. You need a stronger center at that position, and that's why I think it's going to be addressed early, draft, free agency, because you need that guy. And then also I think when you look at what Terrell Austin and that crew wants, they're going to be in tune with that as well and figure out how can we get them those things. Yes, we extended guys. Both your edge rushers are good. They're well paid. They're fat and happy. Cool. Now let's work on how the rest of the structure, because we got ran through, ravaged with injuries a year ago, from linebacker to interior of that secondary. We need to shore this up. Yeah. So what are you going to need? Do you want the vet there? Do you want a young guy you can mold? Let me know what we want. And I think that's where scouting, personnel, and coaches really matter in that communication, why you have to have less friction, because that was the issue we talked about with not Ramon, but who sat down? John Burton, right? It was, hey, Mike Vrabel, Rand Carthon did not get along, so therefore it reflected. But that's one thing I don't see with this. I see Mike has a great relationship with Omar, Andy, Sheldon. And like you said, when you're talking about having to go get guys, and you're looking through the wood chip pile, and you pull out the guys that you did, masterful communication and guys that fit into this and were plug-and-play guys.
Absolutely. He is Max Starks. I'm Dale Lolley, and that's Matt Williamson. My brain is starting to fry up here. But we are live at the Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis, here on Steelers Nation Radio and Fox Sports Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
First, I didn't mess
First time saying that, yeah.
First time saying that.
Messed it up
we're going to take a break. We'll be back with more right after this.
Let's go play some ball.
All clear.
Mike's hot.
Welcome back. I am Dale Lolley here with Max Starks and Matt Williamson. We are live at the Indiana Convention Center. I always screw that up here in Indianapolis at the Scouting Combine. And more news and notes from some of the podium stuff today. Sean Payton saying they expect a decision to come within the next 2 weeks on what happens with Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. I think the decision was kind of already made when they benched him at the end of the season, but what do I know?
Yeah, I think they're just waiting to see if anyone will offer him a trade, which they won't.
No.
And then they'll get released, and then the interesting thing about Wilson is he's a big personality. I'm not saying the Steelers should pursue him or anything along those lines, but his next team is going to sign him for league minimum. He's guaranteed so much money with the Broncos. He has no reason not to sign a league minimum deal with his new team. To me, that's the most appealing thing about the player overall. I mean, you get him for like $1 million a year. Yeah,
you get him for $1 million, and like you said, they're on the Broncos' books. So
yeah, they're paying the deal.
So it's like, hey, why not? But the problem is that does the skill set match the risk? Because if you bring him in, you're guaranteeing he's a starter.
And yeah, because that's what he said. Yeah. He's not going somewhere to compete for a job.
No, he's
going somewhere to be the number one guy.
Yeah, I don't know how many fits there are for that, and I don't think this is one of them.
Well, and Atlanta's not going to be that team because Atlanta is high in the draft. The Bears, regardless of whatever they do with Justin Fields, we're not trading that for that. Like now, I'll stick with the young guy in mistakes before I take old chewed up. You know,
right. I could see the Raiders having to settle for that once he's on the open market.
Mm-hmm. And that might be attractive to Wilson because he gets to play the Broncos twice.
Yeah, exactly. He gets to go back in division.
You're paying me to play against you, and
twice
by the way, if I beat you, you paid me to beat you.
Yes, exactly. How do you like that? Yeah. That's a hard check to sign when you send it over.
Yeah. Ryan Poles said that they would need a similar offer as the one they got last year to move out of the number one position in the draft this year.
I think it'll be even pricier.
Yeah, because you have all those quarterbacks, and so many teams need quarterbacks. I mean, and Carolina's still probably kicking themselves for what the hell did we do by making this trade.
To me, though, that makes – if I'm the Bears, and Matt and I have talked about this a bunch, wouldn't it make sense to – Justin Fields isn't costing you an arm and a leg right now.
No.
You just spent a high first-round draft pick on him a few years ago. To trade out of that spot again, get a whole bunch of more, a whole bunch of extra picks again, and give yourself another year with Justin Fields. Now you got 2 first-round picks. Next year, maybe you have 2 first-round picks 2 years from now because, go
you might have
that.
Marvin Harrison Jr.
And you might have Marvin Harrison Jr. or Malik Neighbors to add to your equation.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it for them if they love Justin Fields. Or if they even like Justin Fields. I'm like, because I'm not really sold on Caleb Williams. Now, mind you,
I think the question is not do we like or love Fields, it's do we adore Williams. If you adore Williams, you take Williams. But if you're like, Williams will work or may, or I think he's really good but not special, give me a ton of picks and players.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's where – and that – watching and calling a couple of Caleb's games over the last couple of years and watching Justin Fields also live this past year, I don't see the X factor that that little bit that throws one over. If
it's Fields plus picks,
Fields plus
greater
picks.
than Williams.
Yeah, greater than Williams by himself, and you're just living with what you got from last year. And I can honestly say I don't love it. I don't love Caleb Williams that much. I watched the end of this year. I watched how he crashed and that team crashed and that lack of accountability. And you go to Chicago and you can't stand in front of a podium, it's going to be a problem. And you're crying to your mom in the stands. Like, it's a whole different level, especially when you go to that city that's thirsty for success.
They've never had a quarterback.
They've never had one in their entire history.
And now that city loves Fields right now.
They love him,
thing, right.
And he's indebted to the community. And, as an organization, you're like, could we wait a year and, like you said, play the smoke and mirrors, boom, bump back, and get a guy, actually put some proper resources into the receiving position. Don't trade for Chase Claypool.
Right.
And expect that to be your magic one-all and DJ Moore. Like, go get him a number 1 receiver, and especially one that he would be familiar with from Ohio State, that's in the family, that's in the brotherhood, where he has a personal relationship with this guy, and they can really grow. And you can get a whole bunch of other people. You need to rebuild your offensive line. Put a real running back there. Like, you could really do this and really set Justin Fields up for success and really see what you got. And then, hey, if it doesn't work out, guess what? We still got capital because we traded out the number 1 pick. We got a top pick next year, so we can go get the next quarterback that's going to come out.
That's the beauty
we'll have
of
2 first-round picks next year. We can move up. We could be that team that moves up to the number 1 spot.
That moves up and did what we had done for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
– with an infrastructure already in place.
Yeah, and with a lot of pieces. Right. And if you're going to put a new quarterback in there, put a new quarterback with a proper offensive line and receivers to throw to. Right. As opposed to bringing a quarterback in and saying, hey, this is what we got, make it work.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the same.
But they also might look at Fields and be like, he has flaws we can't fix, so now the getting's good. They do better than we do.
Yeah, they do. They do. But if it does come to apples, it's like, stockpile and build infrastructure.
Especially going from 1 to 2.
Yeah.
Caleb's from Washington. Washington can move up to 1. They have a new owner. He could be on all the billboards. They could finally have some positive vibes around that organization in Washington.
Color scheme matches from his last school.
See, that's important. Right.
So you don't even have to do that much with CGI with that.
So then you sit there at 2. Maybe you take May and trade Fields just like you planned all along, or you take Harrison and give him next to Fields all along, or trade down again.
Yeah. And somebody wants to come up and get Jaden Daniels, or
right, or May.
Exactly.
Right.
Why not?
You still have a ton of power.
Yeah, you have and they are in the driver's seat. So this is a big make or break moment for Ryan Poles as a GM, because how you manage this draft will determine if you're allowed to draft next year.
The team that really screwed it up was Carolina.
Oh, absolutely screwed the pooch.
Oh, it's a carbon class for how to screw it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, hey, how not to run an organization? Insert Carolina Panthers.
And we talked about this at the beginning of the segment. I guess Ryan Poles said we would want a similar offer to last year. I think it has to be bigger because these quarterbacks are more attractive.
Way
than
better.
Those. Right. I know Stroud turned into a star, but I'm not trading up for Bryce Young compared to trading up for Caleb or May or one of those guys.
Yeah, no, right. I'm going if I'm going to reach up for any of those top 3, right? May, Daniels, and Williams. Like, you got to give me a king's ransom.
Yeah.
I mean, it's similar to Mitch Trubisky, right? It's that type of deal that has to come across the board.
RG3 there's been a lot of them, right?
Yeah, there's been a lot of those big deals where it's like it really could, if it messes up, it could really set a franchise back like 5 years.
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is what Carolina's doing right now, getting set back 5 years.
Effectively.
Yeah.
So, guys, every quarterback who might or There's a hint that he could be available this offseason. He might be available. He's going to be available. Has automatically been tied to the Steelers.
Absolutely.
Automatically. It's just been automatic. Mm-hmm. And as this is going on,
Desmond Ridder.
Somehow Kenny Pickett has gotten worse and worse and worse since the season ended. Yeah. Like, you would think right now he has never won a game in the NFL.
Yeah, you would think that he has never won a game. He's been injured his entire time in his career, and his arm is falling off.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've heard the words desperate thrown around. The Steelers are desperate for a quarterback. And in the reality, that's not the case.
No. No, it's not. I mean, everybody's gone Chicken Little, right? The sky is falling. The sky, because we only have one quarterback on the roster. That's not what it's going to be. And like, you know, to understand Omar Khan and Andy Weidel and company, they're not going to let that happen. I mean, just look at what they've done. So why are we – but once again, when there's instability – or something looked good for the moment, we chase the shiny thing like a cat, right? You know, it dangles. Well, oh, this is a new thing, and you forget about it. This is a true test, and he's only in his third year.
Yeah.
You're acting like this is like –
He started 24 games.
Yeah, you're acting like he's in his 17th year in the league, and we don't know. He's like Ryan Fitzpatrick or something, right? It's like, no, this guy's a young dude. He's not damaged goods. Like, he had an injury, and the guy stepped in and played. That was all it was. And Mason just happened to be the better of the two that played when he was
They
called
went with the
upon.
hot hand.
Yeah, they went with the hot hand, which you can't blame. Got you to the playoffs. Let him try and do it, and then we saw him turn back to normal.
To me, this was no different a situation than in 2019 when Mike Tomlin stuck with Devlin Hodges for a couple of extra games, but then went back to Mason. In the Jets game, Mason got hurt. If Mason doesn't get hurt in that Jets game, he starts the rest of the season, and everybody's a much different opinion coming out of 2019 of Mason Rudolph.
Yeah.
But since Devlin Hodges started those last couple of games, they weren't going anywhere with Devlin Hodges.
No.
I mean, everybody knew that. The Steelers knew that.
The duck was a duck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a great story. They got some wins out of him. Fantastic. But Mason Rudolph was still the better prospect.
Yeah. And a drafted prospect.
Yeah. Kenny Pickett's the same way here. Yes, they stuck with the hot hand with Mason Rudolph at the end of last year. That doesn't mean that their long-term opinion or their opinion on Kenny Pickett has changed.
Yeah, this hasn't gone to the Nick Foles, Carson Wentz category, right?
Oh.
Yeah, it's nowhere near that. It's like injury was why he was out. The guy played well. Season ended.
Yeah.
It's like he gave us 4 games that were really good.
You're trying to make the playoffs, and you stuck with the same guy.
And everybody kind of rallied around it, right? Like you said, like an interim head coach. They rally around the guys, play your best ball, boom. But next year's next year, and you still realize we drafted this guy in the first round. There's a lot of things that we love about him, so why not give him an earnest chance? And people are like, oh, new coordinator, we need to have a brand-new office. Let's blow everything up, and let's get rid of everybody. It's like, no, there's a system, and there's a reason why the Steelers have been in this position, and they've had continual success. Never below 500. Trust the process at the end of the day.
I think the national folks, look at it as Pickett got benched for Rudolph. They're done with Pickett, and which I don't agree with. They favored Rudolph, but they didn't. That doesn't mean that Pickett's career is over or their opinion of him changed. But the fact is, the Steelers are going to add quarterbacks. Not every team in the league is going to add quarterbacks. They're going to go to camp with 4. 3 are going to make the team. Somebody other than Pickett's going to be in the mix. So, I mean, there's a musical chair that's open at least.
And that's where you're at when you're at this point in the career of a new quarterback, right? I mean, unless you had Joe Burrow who came out, you threw him the keys, and he ran with them and made the best out of it. But this is the normal process. This is how it goes. And I think that's where people kind of are so enamored with, well, why didn't you hit on the first-round pick? I said, how many first-round picks don't hit, right? Let's talk about those guys as well. It's not written yet. And and like I said, the 3 years, that's where you get the true snapshot of a player. Give me 3-4 years. Now I can tell you what he is. I can't tell you at 2 years. And like you said, half and half games. He's played literally middles and of seasons. Like his career, he's only played in the middle of it. Hadn't played in the front end and didn't play on the back end of it. But now we need to judge. Let's get a full year's body of work, see how he manages that. And I think a lot of people fell because of that whole incident that leaked about he didn't want to dress because he wasn't starting type of deal. That soured people. And it's like, if I'm not healthy enough to play, why am I going to put on a uniform, right? At the end of the day, I wouldn't do that. And I love my team, and I was a company man and everything else. Wait a second, I can't physically play. I'm not putting this uniform on if I'm not playing. It actually happened to me down in Carolina my 4th year in the league. I tore my meniscus in warm-ups.
Oh, wow.
And I went into the locker room. They checked it, like, oh, my God. Yeah, it's torn. It's kind of loose. But we're outside of the 90-minute window, so we can't scratch you.
Right.
So you got to dress. I was like, well, I'm only dressing if I'm playing. So if I'm dressing, I'm starting. And I started that game. I played that game. Actually did it really good against Julius Peppers that game. He had one assisted tackle.
Recent Hall of Famer.
Yeah, recent Hall of Famer, Julius Peppers.
Recently inducted, yeah.
That's right. Beat him up that game.
That was not on his Hall of Fame resume tape.
It definitely wasn't on his reel. That was definitely the low-light reel. But and then the next week I went on IR. But I was like, yeah, if I'm dressing, I'm playing. So I completely get the mindset. So you can't sit there and say, well, he's not a team player. No. So erase that from your memory.
That's never been a question with that guy.
That's
though.
never been. That should never come into mind. But I heard that the week after. People, oh, well, what about this? I said, exactly. It's a rumor.
Mm-hmm.
Were you there?
Yeah. People that think they know but aren't close to the organization.
Yeah, you have no clue. And I get it. You're on your couch. You want to make an opinion. But let's just keep everything in focus for that.
There's another opinion that's being bandied about on social media, and I want to talk about this one next. We're going to get to a break here, though. We are live from the Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis. He is Max Starks. That's Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley, and you're listening here on Steelers Nation Radio and Fox Sports Pittsburgh. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more right after this. Back. I am Dale Lolley here with Max Starks and Matt Williamson, live at the Indiana Convention Center, where we're here for all week long for the Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis. And guys, I mentioned a little rumor that's been buzzing around on social media. Social media is full of such things. But I keep seeing this and hearing this, that the Steelers are going to cut or trade Deontay Johnson. I don't believe that's going to happen, and there are plenty of reasons why. Why would you trade away a starter a valuable starter and create another hole.
Productive starter.
Or worse yet, cut him.
Yeah.
Why would you do that?
Because this is the era of fantasy football where they believe they can pick them back up on the waiver wire after they pass the cut period. I mean, people are so quick to get rid of things, and they don't really look at foundational pieces. And I think that's where you have a contract, you're expected to play that contract. Unless your performance is just so far below it, you must release said guy.
Right.
Deontay Johnson has not given us any indication of that. And, in fact, he got better as the season got on. And also, he was a productive guy when it came to a lot of the schematic things. When we were running, right, he was running a lot of those blocks. He was downfield trying to make plays to help his team. He was a productive teammate. And I think people look at whether his face is down or how he talks in the media, they think, oh, he's unhappy, he's disgruntled from something 2 years ago. It's like, no, like this is what happens in a team structure. Have you not worked in a business where you love everybody? No, you have moments. You have a bad day, and because you're in a sport where cameras are everywhere, they find you on the bad day, and there's a camera of it. But it doesn't mean how does he look to his teammates? All his teammates love him, right? Coaching staff loves him. He's a guy that's always looked to as a leader on that offensive side of the ball, especially when you're talking about a team that's as young as it is.
Right.
You need the veteran
You're
guys.
going to get even younger. If you get rid of him, you're getting even younger.
Yeah, you're going to get even younger. So it's an asinine comment to make, but people are always trying to figure out how can we build Madden Dynasty mode faster, right? Yeah. That's essentially what it is.
We've seen a lot of wide receivers in particular get traded before their final year. A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, etc., that are quality players, and there would be a market for him. But it wouldn't be as great as those players. The cap savings you would make is not enough to go out in free agency, which is rough waters anyways, and get a comparable player. It's a very good receiver draft, as it always is, basically. But I already think they need to draft one either way. I don't want to draft two. Are we opening up another hole? He's one of the best separators in the league. You guys mentioned they're very young on offense. They need some stability there, too, and they're very familiar with them. Dale and I would talk about this at camp all the time. He's one of the last guys on the field all the time. It's not a work ethic thing. And I also think some of the route concepts going forward will help him. People complain that he catches a ball and comes back to the line of scrimmage. Well, a lot of those route concepts bring him that way. They're not hitting him in stride. I would rather extend them than cut them.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, when you're building a wide receiving core and you're coming into a new offense, why am I going to add more young pieces that don't get it? And Deontay gets it. He's gone through this process. He also has a feel. He has a connection with Kenny Pickett. You want to keep as many of those connections in place as you're going through the pains of establishing a new offensive structure. Yeah. And the guy's caught a lot of balls. He's caught a lot of balls in his career.
He's your man beater.
Yeah, he's the one that you put. Yes, George Pickens is Circus George, right? He's going to go make the spectacular sideline catch. But Deontay's the one that's going to be the clear-out guy and also going to create separation to make that in route on a post route and go yard. Like, that's just who he is. And I'd rather just figure out the slot and not have to, like you said, now I got to go get an outside number 1/2 receiver, and I have to go get a slot receiver. I don't want to do both.
If you do that, now you're saying, okay, we got to draft a wide receiver in the first round.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. You get rid of Deontay. That's the equivalent comp right now.
Yeah.
And you're not going to go in free agency and get him because obviously most of those guys are going to be locked up. And if you do, now it's a character issue that you have to dive deeper into. Why didn't they keep you?
Yeah.
Type of deal. Or you're paying
the money you save on
$1
Deontay, you're not going to go get Mike Evans.
No.
You're not going to upgrade. You're going to get somebody that's got a little bit of ability, but not nearly as proven, and isn't a route runner or nearly as productive the last couple of years. It makes little to no sense to me at all. I'd rather put another year in his contract, open up some cap space now, and buy into him.
Yeah,
and still draft one.
Yeah, exactly, because you have to continually build the depth in that room. Like, you can't stay stagnant with the wide receiver position in today's NFL.
It's too important. You play too many of them.
Yeah, you need 3 at minimum, and so that means you need 5 on the roster.
What if Pickens gets hurt?
Exactly. Yeah.
Then where are you?
Now I'm trusting a rookie to fill that production. You're not going to do that. But at least if you have a Deontay out, you have a George. If you have a George out, you have a Deontay.
Right.
And you have still a number 1 go-to guy that's proven.
Mm-hmm.
You
don't get rid of those guys cheap.
No.
And I don't think the people who are trying to say trade Deontay Johnson, you're not going to get, as Matt said, a first-round draft pick for him. He's got 1 year left on his contract. You're probably not going to get a second-round draft pick for him.
No.
Because of the way the contract is right now. Yeah. It's probably going to be a third or lower, and I'm not interested in that.
No, that does nothing. That doesn't move the needle.
That doesn't replace Deontay Johnson.
No, it doesn't. It gives me the ability to go get a different position. But
right.
now, like you said,
I created another hole. Now I'm the little Dutch boy, and I'm sticking my finger all over the,
Yeah, exactly. No, as opposed to just putting the plaster on there and saying, hey, let's just go fix what we need. And I think, but that's also why the Steelers never flinch in those moments, right? They never give way. Like a lot of other teams, the social pressure, the outside noise forces us to do something uncharacteristic because we feel like we have to appease the mob. The Steelers are like, no.
It's the same thing, and I'm sure you guys have both heard this as well. Well, they needed Cam Hayward. Cut him. Get it. He can't play at that contract. He's got to take a pay cut. Are you kidding me?
Get out of here.
They don't get the value.
Yeah, they don't understand the value. Just because he doesn't make every single play, he doesn't have 20 sacks like a T.J. Watt. I was like, but if you watch what he does, he creates the sacks for T.J. Watt, Alex Highsmith. He is unblockable on the inside when you give him an inside one-on-one move that forces a quarterback off his point. Like, there's so many intangibles. But because, right, you're watching the television copy only follows the ball, you don't see the end result. You don't see the minutia of it because you're watching a route. You're watching the running back that's running a flare because they think he's going to get the ball. What Cam Hayward does and what he brings leadership-wise.
Yeah.
That's what it says.
You can't measure that, and there's nobody you can replace him with in this draft or if, you go back 5 years in the draft. Like, what he brings is invaluable to that team and how he's helped Keanu Benton, right, as a mentor in that room, teaching guys how to play the position like T.J. Watt does with Nick Herbig and even with Alex Highsmith. Like, there's constant communication. When you don't have that vet in the room, and this is one thing I hate about kind of today's rookie wage scale and how they've changed it, they really cut out those middle-class, older vets that are there for teaching and almost like a player-coach type of position. It's either young or old, and we paid them a lot of money. That middle class is getting better. They're starting.
It was really bad for a while.
But it was really bad when we first started it to where it was like, I got a first, second, and third year guy. Oh, and by the way, I got a 12th year guy. It's like, what? Where's the 7th year guy? There's no 7th years on
I had that conversation many times with Ramon, when he was still playing. Like, the middle class was, where was it?
Non-existent,
I mean, real quick back to Johnson and Hayward. Maybe you restructure Cam's deal a little bit to open up a little bit of cap space, but you don't get him out of the building ever. No. I mean, he just won the Walter Payton Man of the Year award.
Like,
I mean,
that's the greatest human being in football award. I mean,
right.
Yeah,
like, what more evidence do you need?
What else do you need? Like that's ridiculous at that point.
Right. Yeah. It's a combination of player and off the field. Like, that's what you want.
And he still beats dudes behinds. Like Cordell Volson does not want to see Cam Hayward ever in his life.
No, the Bengals would do cartwheels if we got rid of Cam
Hayward.
Oh
gosh, you know how excited they'd be? Jeez.
Right.
Yeah, get out of here.
I mean, and as for Johnson, if you don't plan on extending him and your season goes down the drain and the trade deadline's there, move him. But otherwise, he's a foundational piece. So you're trying to win now, and you're not going to get better at that position.
No, and like you said, at least get me to the season to see what it is first.
Yeah.
There's no value in me getting rid of him at this point or trading him at this point before we've even installed a new offense.
Right.
Because who knows, it might be an even better advantageous offense where he can really be dynamite paired with George Pickens. Yeah. So let's keep all of our pieces on the table. Let's not just sacrifice pawns for the sake of moving up the board for no reason, because it's like, no, this pawn can eventually, if he gets across the board, he's a queen now.
Yeah.
And a very valuable chess piece.
But I get it to a point because this is the time of the year. I mean, we're the reason we're here. It's the draft.
Yeah.
And so there's all these shiny new things out there. Well, this guy's got to be better. Well, in many cases, they aren't, though. This is not an exact science. Yeah. Just because a guy runs a fast 40 and had good tape in college doesn't mean he's going to be a great NFL player. You can't just plug that guy in as a replacement and say, well, he'll be Deontay Johnson.
There's also
this guy will be Cam Hayward.
There's also a misnomer, particularly in Pittsburgh, that Deontay's overpaid, that he's not worth the contract. You're not paying enough attention to wide receiver contracts then.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No,
that's a pricey position.
Very pricey position. And then also, Denzel Mims, right? He's a prime example in Denver. Like, it was like, oh, he's going to be better. He's got to be better than Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
Who caught more passes?
Oh, right.
Who was more available?
Right.
I mean, we could look at, hell, when I came out, Robert Woods came from Oklahoma State. oh my God, he's going to be. I'm sorry, not Robert Woods, Rashawn Woods. Oh, he's first round draft. He's got to be great. Played 2 years.
Yeah,
played 2 years. First round pick, brought him in. It happens all the time, and like you said, this is the area where we get antsy.
Sure.
And we feel all the emotions and all the fuzzies, but it's like, look at reality. How do you build things? How have the Steelers built things? This is not characteristic. We're not the New York Jets, where we're just jumping on the hot thing and we'll just blow up everything. And it has to be, Chris Olave. That has to be our number one, and we have to make him that because we're force feeding him the ball. No. How you build great teams. Look at Kansas City. You build through the draft, and you take the pieces that you got, and you make them better. McCole Hardman, they kicked him out and then brought him back before he was really a true value to them, and it was only the last play of the Super Bowl and maybe a couple plays in the playoffs. Like, that's just – it's not just a carbon cut, like, hey, we can put this here, plug and play everyone. Everybody comes from a different system, and they have to mature into this league.
And you know what fans and local media do this time of year, especially Combine. I'm starting to get more and more familiar with these prospects. I want all of them. I want a center. I want a tackle. I want a corner. I want all these things, but we don't have enough picks for them. So who can we trade like Chase Claypool to get Joey Porter Jr.? That doesn't happen every year, folks. I mean, that's not going to work out that way. You can't just turn Deontay into the next Joey Porter Jr.,
Yeah, it doesn't happen. And like you said, the value also is not there. You have to understand what the value is in the market at that point. It's different if you're talking about Deontay's the number 3 receiver in the league, right? He's CD Lamb, or somewhere.
You're going to get a first-round draft pick.
You're going to get
A.J. Brown when they traded him.
Right. 24 years old and coming off his first contract. That's not where we're at right now.
No, we're at a guy who's a veteran, who's been established, but he also fits our system.
And he catches a lot of balls.
And he has a high volume of catches. Mm-hmm. You can't replace that. I don't care how many balls he caught in college in a spread offense. Like pro-style offenses, dealing with a run-heavy team in a division that's full of defenses, like the dude is battle-tested, and you can't find that guy.
You don't have to get younger on offense. You don't have to get cheaper on offense. Go with the guys that are productive.
Volume does not equal quality, right? Quantity does not equal quality.
Well, real quick here before we end the hour here, you mentioned the spread offenses, and how difficult is it now to look at some of these players coming out in these drafts based on what they do in college as compared to what they're going to be asked to do in the pros? That's more somewhat, but we're still not completely there.
We're not sold there, and yes, you do get a little bit more spreadish in the pros. Like we see a lot more 10 personnel than we've seen in the past. But at the end of the day, like that's why I can't judge Joe Milton, right, for Tennessee. Because of that offense. Yeah. And with the receivers.
Hendon Hooker a year ago.
A year ago. I don't know how to value these guys. And the receivers, even that. I mean, for Jalen Hyatt, like you knew he was taking the number 1, and he was getting man press because teams had to show themselves. But if I'm looking at the number 2 and number 3 receivers on a squad, it's tough because these teams are so spread out. Like there's no reading involved. Like the teams have to show their hands, whereas the NFL – these are the best of the best. They know how to disguise, and they will disguise. And does that guy know what the disguise is? So it makes it really tough to evaluate quarterback talent out of a spread as well as the wide receivers coming out of the spread because they only have one read in a spread offense, whereas you have 2 to 3 reads once you get to the league. And does that guy have the mental capacity? So that's where getting on the grease board, getting those meetings in with them, seeing how he does out there on the field, and moves really gives you a better insight, but you don't get it from the season tape. It takes all-star games, and it takes the private workouts to really understand.
Kurt Warner had a tweet about that last week where he said, I'm breaking down quarterback tape right now. He said, I can't tell if these guys can play or not because everybody's a one-read quarterback.
Yeah.
Like
exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to throw it here.
Yeah, exactly. Or I knew I was throwing there pre-snap.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm just going to wait 2 seconds and then boom, pop it out there because that's
not there. I'll run.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one thing what I like about Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels had to really read the defenses because if he tried to go premeditate in the first quarter of a game, it looked terrible. And then he ended up ascending later when he had to read and he had to make those decisions. That's what I think separated him from the Heisman conversation this year because you really saw him going through his progression, being patient in the pocket, moving slightly. Even though he's a running threat, he didn't run every time he had the opportunity to run. He would run to get open and create stuff with his feet. To get the receiver in the place he wanted them to, a la like Ben.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's the toughest thing to look at with these quarterbacks. I mean, I watch Nick's tapes, for example. It's like, all right, everything's a bubble screen.
Yeah, everything's short catch and run.
Yeah.
Right? Let's run a couple slashes. Let's run some crosses across the middle. Let's bubble a guy out. Let's swing him out. and, let the guy go and do what he does.
You're not going to do that in the NFL.
No, because there's a defensive end that can run just as fast as that running back that you're swinging it out to.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no Thornton Valley State on the schedule.
He is Max Starks. He's Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. You're listening here to our ongoing Combine coverage here in Indianapolis on Steelers Nation Radio and Fox Sports Pittsburgh. That's going to do it for this hour. Max is taking off. You're done for the day.
I am free and clear until we see each other at dinner.
Well, we'll see each other at dinner. Yeah, for sure. And we'll continue these conversations, and then we'll do it again tomorrow.
Yes,
why not?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Why not? Let's run it back.
Yeah, let's do that. But we're going to get to a breakdown. Matt and I will be back to finish up the day here with our final hour of coverage here from the Scouting Combine right after this. Matt Williamson, and it's just us.
Just you and I. Bring it on home.
Just you and I.
A lot going on
it's
here
a song,
today.
isn't it? Absolutely. Lots of guests, lots of good stuff going on. And, we're here for the Combine, and we now know the top three quarterbacks are not going to throw at the Combine. But some of the other guys are. So you get to see some of those. And that's the quarterbacks always drive the
They
process.
do, but there's a lot more to see.
There's a lot more to see. But guys like Marvin Harrison's not going to do any workouts here. He's going to do it all at Ohio State. But some of these other guys are going to run and do some, a lot of the workouts and stuff. I just, you know, when you start to get into this part of the season, part of the off season, you'll hear guys, well, he's rising up the board. That guy's rising up the board. This doesn't do that for this puts them on the radar of the media.
Right.
People need to understand that.
I also think the last couple weeks when there's all the scouts in the building and they're talking, I think some things leak out a little bit more too. So the media, the quote insiders,
catch up,
Schefters of the world, get some more stuff thrown their way, and it trickles out. Some of which isn't true. Yeah. Some of it are just smoke screens, and it is lying season and all those things as well. So up until that point, plus the coaches hadn't been involved. You know, if you're insiders with a coach or an O-line coach, he hasn't even seen these guys. So, you know, bowl season, they're not even in that mix. So I do think now that we're all, you know, all the people, the decision makers are all in the same city, all in the same vicinity. Things do leak, you know.
Yeah.
There are some smoke screens, of course, but I think it's not all of a sudden that the Steelers just found out about this guy that had never heard of. I mean, they've been in the school, they've been you know, scouting him all along. People change on boards, though. I mean, that definitely happens.
Well, I think and those changes come because of what this place was initially came out of this, the interviews and the medicals.
I say it's usually negative.
Right.
Yeah, right. If you give the kid the benefit of the doubt, well, if he's healthy, I like him in the second round. Well, my doctor says his knee's not good. I can only take him the fifth or later, or he's off my board. Well, then somebody moved up.
He's a one contract. We're not going to get a second contract out of this guy, so we're not going to use a day 1 or 2 pick on him.
Yep. And
he's a day 3 guy.
Maurice Hurst was this guy a couple years ago. He gets here, he didn't even know he had anything wrong with him, and he had a heart condition. You know, like they poke and prod you so much. Some of those things pop up. Or, I didn't love sitting down chatting with this kid. I'm not even going to bring him in for a visit. I thought about it. Let's go another direction. We have so many visits. What you don't hear is when people come to the visits late in the process or in your building for the day, I love them. You know, and they just don't tell anybody about it.
Those ones you're not telling anybody about.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah, I think to a certain degree, like somebody's going to go out here this week and run something 4.3 40. I thought he was a 4.5 guy. That's what his tape looked like.
Then you go back to
the
tape.
You believe the tape then, or you go back and you look at the tape and say, yeah, he probably is a 4.5 guy in pads.
Or he's great out of. I mean, he's been practicing his start.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, but you definitely cross-check it. You go back to the tape. We talk about this a lot. A huge mistake that is made is I write this guy up. Boy, he's blazing fast. I adore his speed. He comes out here, runs a 4.29, and I even give him another bonus prize for that. Like, you already gave him.
That's where you get in trouble.
Right. Yeah.
That's where you get yourself into trouble by checking off more boxes with this stuff. So you have to – I think you go into this with a little bit – if you're a team, you go into this with a little bit of a governor on everything where you're saying, okay, we can't give the guy extra credit for what we already thought he was. Yeah,
you can't give him credit twice.
Don't give him credit twice for what you already thought about him. Stick with your original assessment. Now, maybe somebody who goes out and shows something here makes you go back and look at him again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, change of direction stuff, explosion stuff. You know, maybe when I watched him, he had a knee. Or, you know, I mean, you got to – why doesn't the tape add up to what he did here? Maybe he's a better athlete now, or maybe he's a better specimen now because of the way he's working out. As we always say, guys are allowed to get better. I think a smart thing I would do is if I was in charge of a front office would be I want a report from all of you the day before the combine ends of everybody you're in charge of. That's not your final answer.
Right.
I'm not holding that to you at all. But when we go to our final meetings and you write your final report, I'm going to print this old one out and we're going to put them next to each other. And let's just remember what we thought before.
And if this one's drastically different than this one, I want to know why.
Tell me why.
Yeah.
And, hey, you can sell me. You know, I mean, I misread it. I watched the wrong games. I was told the wrong information. We wouldn't want to get it right. But I wonder, is report number 1 better to go off than the last one? You know what I mean? If we just ignored all this to some degree. You know, in some cases the answer is yes.
I just wonder, too, like, so the Big 12 this year, I don't know if we've talked about this yet or not. The Big 12 is doing its own pro day.
For the whole
league.
The league.
They're trying it out this year. So they're going to have –
know that.
They're going to have all the Big 12 teams in one place. I can't remember where it's at. So it might be in Texas
somewhere big,
or something. And they're going to have all their players come in, and they're all going to work out and do everything. It's like a 3 or 4 day long process.
Okay.
In some respects, I think it's a good idea. In other respects, I'm like, you're going to lose some of the, like, for example, is Mike Tomlin going to be able to take guys to dinner like he normally would?
Mm-hmm. Are they going to do medicals? I mean, I have a lot of questions. I mean, are they doing these drills?
They're treating it like it's a pro day, so it's going to be.
So they're not going to. They're not going to do combine drills exactly. It's not.
Right.
It's not a mirror image of what we see here. It's more like Oklahoma and Oklahoma State's pro day rolled into one.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they'll get good attendance.
Oh, I think it'll be highly attended. I think
will be there,
all 32 teams will have somebody there. And what you then get away from is, okay, on this day, Iowa State and Oklahoma State had pro days at the same time.
And GM can't be two places.
Can't be at two places at the same time. Mm-hmm. But what happens now, okay, we get this pro day for the Big 12, and pick a school. Florida State's also having theirs.
Especially if the pro day for the
Or
Big 12
Alabama.
is the whole weekend.
Yeah.
You know, it's not just one day. It's going to be multiple days.
Or Michigan's pro day is that same weekend. Like,
I'm just curious. It's not that it matters to the NFL, but are the schools paying for the kids to go?
I think they did this in conjunction with the NFL.
Okay.
I think to kind of try to test it out a little bit here. Maybe
and the kids that have no chance, are they going to be there?
I would guess. I mean,
clouding things up. And
each school brings their top 20 guys. I don't know.
I would also think the other leagues want to be there because they want those guys heavily. I mean, the guys that aren't combine invites, aren't Senior Bowl invites, any All-Star game invites. I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, there's always been regional combines.
Right. But
they're for the really down-the-line guys.
Yeah.
I guess it's a decent experiment.
Yeah. What you lose out on is some of those times, like some of these schools, like if I'm Oklahoma and I have my pro day, and there's a kid from Central Oklahoma.
Right. He ties in with you guys.
Yeah.
Right. Can I
just bring him
jump in?
Yeah.
Right.
And so I don't know if they're going to allow that at the Big 12 pro day. I
think Pitt's had Duquesne kids.
Yeah.
Right. Like, no one's going to go to yours. They'll come to ours. We'll do you a favor.
Yeah, we're instead of having our 12 guys, we'll have 15.
But I'm also wondering, kind of a Senior Bowl environment, I mean, Coach Tomlin's the best example. Is he mulling around on the field chatting with dudes while they're not doing stuff?
Right.
Because not everyone's going to be busy doing drills the whole time.
Yeah. I don't know what I mean.
I don't know.
Again, it's something new.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. We'll see how it works out.
No, I'd be curious if you see after the fact when scouts, kind of leak it, like, boy, that's a great idea. Everyone should do it.
Yeah.
Or, boy, it had a lot of flaws. If we could get that fixed, great.
Because now what we're seeing is that the top prospects aren't working out here anymore.
No.
They want to wait and do it at the pro day because it's a more controlled environment. They control the environment.
Well, they slept in their own bed.
Right.
They weren't, podded and.
But if it's at the Big 12, everybody's,
you lose some of that.
You lose some of that.
Mm-hmm. So I guess it's a little more familiar. Or maybe you do some things here and you don't do them there. Like the oldest trick in the book. You come in here looking great in your shorts and underwear, and then you lose a little weight, and then you run up a good 40, or vice versa, whatever.
Or vice versa. People thought you're too light, so you come in here, you gain 10 pounds. Oh, no, he's 210 pounds.
He's not going to run.
Yeah, but he doesn't run, shockingly enough.
Yeah.
And then he's back down to 195 at his pro day, and he runs. Oh, he ran a 4.35. Well, yeah.
I mean, earlier today when I was on with Moats and Wes, we were talking about how, I think the way I phrased it was, if you were to write a history book of the history of scouting NFL, right now is a really weird period because all the 6-year guys, the COVID guys, the NIL stuff, all the transfers. Like, I bet scouts are going, none of us know right now. Let alone here's one more other addition they threw in the mix. So I think it's a real transitional time in the world of evaluating players.
Well, and the other thing with the NIL stuff now, you got more guys staying in college.
Yeah. I mean, there's hardly any juniors in this class, comparatively speaking.
I mean, how many redshirt sophomores do you see in this one? Just not many.
But a lot of 24 and 25-year-olds.
Yeah.
So I did throw out the one thing, though, a huge concern, rightfully so, all along, is once I give this guy money, this kid, how does he handle it? Well, now some of them at least have had money.
They have,
right.
It's not a foreign concept.
To them. It's not a foreign concept. Right.
Yeah, they've actually gone through this now, which
gotten
is
something for their hard work.
A little different from most college students, so.
Right. Right.
You get that $25,000 a year job out of college, and you're like, "Woo, I'm loaded.
I'm doing well." Right. I'm set for life.
But it is an interesting draft this year with some of the positions and how they line up with the needs of the Steelers.
Oh, I think it does really well.
Yeah.
We had Daniel Jeremiah on, and he just did his mock, and my last question for him was O-line, specifically tackle, and corner sure look like they got a really good chance to be available at 20, and he jumped out of a chair. He totally reiterated that, especially if 4 quarterbacks go. He thought maybe 3 edge rushers could go in that time. Brock Bowers, 3 wide receivers. All of a sudden, you get to 20 pretty quick.
Yeah.
We haven't even touched the tackle or tight end or
right.
tackle or corner,
Yeah, that's going to be the interesting thing about this draft, and I think when when it's all said and done, to me, the Steelers come out of the first few rounds with an offensive lineman, a defensive back,
maybe a wide receiver,
maybe in a wide receiver in those first 3 rounds, maybe a defensive lineman,
possibly, yeah. Any of those 2 fourth-round picks.
And you still have the 2 fourth-round picks with to do with what you want to do. One thing we haven't talked a ton about, and this is going to be interesting to see how he works out, is Tandre Sweat.
Right.
And
talk about guys that don't weigh in and all the play the game.
I want to see what he weighs in at, because he's listed at. Let's see here. What are they? He's big.
I don't know what he's listed at, but while you look for that, if you go to SeniorBowl.com.
Right now, 6'4", 362 pounds.
Okay.
I'm going to bet he doesn't show up here at 362 pounds.
You're saying less.
I think he comes in at less than that, yeah.
If it's more, you got to worry.
Yeah.
You gotta worry.
I think he comes here. I'll be interested to see if he's like 350.
Especially if he plans on working out, which I think he does. I mean, that's the first group. We've heard nothing to say he isn't. He would be really smart to come in under 350, 349 and a half. I mean, whatever it is, but under 350.
Something under
right.
350, yes.
And then do the drills at that weight, whether you put some of that weight on or not afterwards.
Because I know he was a good football player, 362 pounds.
Mm-hmm. If that's what he really played.
If that's what he really weighed.
Yeah.
I don't want to,
He's the only one that didn't weigh in at the Senior Bowl.
Didn't weigh in at the Senior Bowl. So was he 380? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he was in the process of cutting weight then.
Yeah.
For this day.
Yeah.
Really interesting, though. I mean, he can impact the game, but the question is, how can he do it for 20 plays in a row, 15 plays in a row?
Because that's the problem with
drive.
the Georgia guys the last couple of years.
Jordan Davis in particular.
Yeah. These guys are top when they play, when they're on the field. They were great in college, but they were never full-time players.
No. Show us their 10 best plays, even in the NFL. Wow. Great.
Yeah.
He took that guard or that center and just drove him back because he's so powerful. Next play, his hands are on his hips, and and they ran right past him. Well, we didn't see that.
The offense gets him on the field. Now they start going, hurry up.
Yeah. Right. Make him rush the passer over and over and over, and he's a non-existent player.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what those guys have to prove, which is hard.
Yeah.
And from this point on, there's no more football to be played.
Because if Tandre Sweat were there in the second round,
I'd be very tempted.
Take him and you make him the nose, kick Keanu Benton out to defensive end. Now you got yourself in line.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and he would not have to be a full-time player here. Hayward would be a great influence on him.
Right.
Him and Benton could line up next to each other. Him and Hayward could line up next to each other. Ogunjobi's still in the mix.
Yeah, because he's got enough pass rush juice that I wouldn't mind having him out there in the nickel.
I think he's a better pass rusher than Jordan Davis was.
Yeah.
In terms of more than just a bull rush. I mean, you'll see swims and you'll see rips. And, if he gets on an edge instead of just going down the middle of a guy, he can get underneath you, and So I would be very intrigued.
The key is he really 362 pounds?
Yeah, and
because that worries me.
Is that as low as he can get?
Yeah.
And by the time, I don't know how to phrase this, but you want to see his body type. I mean, he's gonna get up there in his underwear, and that's important. I mean, what's his bone structure? How much fat's on his body? That type of thing. He's gonna go in the bod pod. They're gonna break all those things down.
The bod pod.
The bod pod's great. Moach was talking about his time in the bod pod earlier this morning. And then, is this as light as he can possibly get? And what kind of kid is he? What's he going to show up at Latrobe at?
Right.
In our recruiting time, we had some big kids, and then they disappear, and then they show up at Pitt, and it's like, I don't even recognize you, dude.
Yeah.
You've been eating, or you look a lot better, or you look a lot worse. Those are the questions. But if you can harness 30 plays a game out of him, at his peak or close to it, that's easily worth a mid-second round pick.
Yeah.
Easily.
And it's, that's the one guy, the one defensive lineman at the top of this draft that I'm like, oh, that one would interest me.
I could see why. I mean, you want to be – we just talked about this with Max. I mean, this is a very physical, power-based division. Go get big, powerful guys.
Yeah.
And there's no one more so in the middle of the defense.
Yeah, so I think
I like him. Yeah.
I think that's going to be interesting with him with the weigh-in stuff.
Yes,
that happens here. As you mentioned, he didn't weigh in at the Senior Bowl.
No.
Didn't get on the scales.
I mean, Jordan Davis's combine numbers will blow your doors off. He ran unbelievably well, but the stamina still isn't there for him. He's not playing regular snaps with the Eagles, and it's unfair to say Sweat's the same guy. They're not, But I bet Sweat doesn't test as well. But he's a better pass rusher on tape, and he also played more snaps than Davis did.
Yeah.
I mean, Georgia was winning by 1 million, and he was just sitting on the sidelines, and they had 3. I mean, not that Texas isn't talented. I mean, he's going to have another first-round defensive tackle next to him. But Georgia had Jalen Carter as a backup.
Yeah, so little things like that I'm interested in seeing over the next couple of days as we start to get the heights and weights and things like that come in here because –
we got D-line linebackers coming up here real soon. There's a lot of linebackers I want to see, too.
You can't trust the heights and weights that the colleges gave you.
Oh, no, they're all lies. They're all lies. Especially the huge dudes.
Yeah,
I mean, who knows? Right. No, they're all lies.
I mean, the quarterbacks are, they listed him at 6'2". He's really 5'11", or this guy was.
You just hope it's not too far off.
Right.
I mean, you assume they're lying by an inch.
Like I'm working on I'm working on a story right now on Connor Hayward for Steelers.com. In high school, he's listed as 6'2".
He's not 6'2".
He's not 6'2".
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's how it
he's
works.
never been 6'2" in his life.
Don't trust a program ever. Yeah, and that was a good thing with Senior Bowl, too.
I get that argument all the time. Well, he's listed at this. I'm like.
Doesn't mean anything.
He might have been that at one point in his life, but they don't remeasure you and put new weights in every year.
Height and arm length and hand size don't change. Those are all facts.
Yeah, the facts, right. the weight
What's he done since
then?
Yeah, right.
That's where the differences come.
Yeah, body type and all those type of things, conditioning, those type of things.
Absolutely.
So you got to get to know the young man. I mean, I think Sweat's a great example. We haven't talked much about him, but second round, if you filled a few needs coming into the draft, those dudes don't present themselves all that often.
That would
be changes things.
Yeah, that changes things dramatically.
I think Holcomb and Roberts would appreciate it too.
I think so.
Yeah.
Let's get to a break. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on Steelers Nation Radio and Fox Sports Pittsburgh. We are live from the Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis. We'll be back with more right after this.
What's in my hands, this is goldfish. For the shine I watch codes crack like glow sticks. Know the risk when it's full speed, better hope it sticks. Haters munching clothes in the air, how they throwing fits. Big mad, big fast, get that out of bounds like a kickback. Watch me snap like a Kit Kat. It's like fishing in barrels, how you miss that? The grind's real, so it feels stronger when we hit back. Started with steps, making some moves. Focused on self, so the team can improve. How can we lose? There's no stopping us now. Adding blocks can turn to pyramids. One shot can make a difference. If the choice is standing here or at the top, then I'm trying to peak like I'm looking in. Highly disciplined. Hungry like Kobe after Walker. I'm just trying to beat the whole team last summer. Hustle, work to put the strain on the brain and the muscles. Dogs off the chain, no muzzle. Started with steps, taking some moves, paying dues, then turned every inch into a mile. Focused on self, so the team can improve. How can we lose? There's no stopping us now. I am not the same person that I was yesterday. No, I'm not. If it's for the love or the dub, don't hesitate. They giving it, still you take the whole mile. It's experience, you can see that we smile. Going forward, we cannot back it down. Yeah, we'll be ready for this journey. We prepare for war, so you better bring it on me. Starting with steps, making some moves, playing those things. Turn every inch into a mile. Focused on self, so the team can improve. How can we lose? No stopping us now. Nothing was given, I'm feeling alive. Can't deny I've earned it. At the neck, I'm sabotage. Nothing to hide, I want it. No surprise, I'm coming. That's a wise assumption. So recognize the moment. All these years, blood, sweat, and tears. Reflect on this moment. Been staring in mirrors. Lost in the dream of realities. Bring formality so I can back down the fears and I won't.
Welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, except no substitutes.
All right.
There's only one. We are live at the Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis, here on Fox Sports Pittsburgh and Steelers Nation Radio. We'll be here taking you through to the 4 o'clock hour, and then we'll call it a day. We'll be back again starting tomorrow. Same thing, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., same cast of characters as well.
Yeah, exact same slate, huh?
Yeah, tagging in. We're like the luchadors here, tagging in and out.
Yeah, kind of overlapping, and I did a little work with the Blitz folks today, and a little bit of overlap.
Cross-pollination.
Yeah, a little cross-pollination. I like.
Absolutely. So we're talking about this draft and everything, and when I look at the different positions here, and we were talking about this in the previous segment of where the Steelers needs a line. We're just talking about defensive tackle. Not a good defensive tackle draft.
It really isn't. There's a couple intriguing guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the Clemson dude, Oko, whatever his name is. There's a couple, Robinson from Missouri, but these guys aren't going to be cheap. They're not going to be values. You're not getting them in the 5th, 6th round.
Yeah.
I mean, we can maybe uncover some more names, and this athletic testing will help decipher some as well. If you get a moldable piece of clay that doesn't have to play a ton right off the bat, that would be sort of interesting considering the age and where the D-line is at. But it's not a great group. I'm talking about defensive tackle types.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I think, when you look at this, some of the guys who are going to be taken early, the Jerzon Newtons or the Murphy from
Texas,
from Texas, 6'1".
Oh, yeah, they're not even the Steelers style. Right,
yeah.
right.
I mean, maybe they come in taller than what they were listed at, but I doubt it.
But they're not going to be the Steelers version.
There's a better chance they come in shorter than what you expect.
They're not going to be 6'3". They're
right.
not going to be 6'4". So do you punt on D-line unless the right guy happens to fall to you? Do you go spend some money there? Do you try to get a high-quality year out of Hayward and a step forward from Benton and hope you don't get too banged up and have some depth, and that's your first-round pick a year ago? It's not a position you want to be light at, but the options aren't great.
They aren't. We've seen the Steelers in the last few years take some guys in those middle rounds, but what you're asking them to do versus what their colleges asked them to do doesn't always align. With Benton it did because Wisconsin runs a similar style of defense.
Yeah, I mean, he's a home run story. He's a success story.
Yeah.
But a lot of those guys take a little bit of time to understand where blocking angles are coming from, hand placement. One thing I always noticed, especially at the recruiting level, was the super talented D tackles probably have to do less in terms of technique than any other position.
Yeah.
Because they grab the little kid in front of them and throw him away. They throw you right out of the bar.
Yeah,
and
if you want to see some of that, folks, go Google or look on YouTube for Stephon Tuitt high school highlights.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, he's playing Class A football in Georgia, and he's just throwing guys out like he's a bouncer in the bar.
Yeah, I mean, it's big brother, little brother stuff.
Yeah.
So a lot of those guys don't develop technique, and you need technique at this level. You're not going to win at the line of scrimmage against full-grown, guards and centers that understand the leverage and the schemes without, a lot of technique work. So even a Sweat or an Ogwonko, again, I'm just butchering his name, would they help you right away? Aurora. Okay. Yeah. I mean, they might. Or halfway through the season, are they starting to hit their stride? They might. You don't know.
I had that conversation with Montravius Adams last year. I mean, Montravius Adams was a 5-star recruit.
Yeah.
Had his choices,
pick, right?
His choice of schools where he wanted to go. He ends up going to Auburn. And he said, I got by on I was more athletic than the guy in front of me, and I could just, beat him up. I didn't have to worry about technique.
Quicker, stronger,
and all that
faster.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Well, now he's reached that point where he understands the technique, what's being asked of him, and that's why he's a better football player now.
Yeah, and we brought up him and Watts quite a bit. I thought both of them had highly successful seasons, got more out of him than you paid for him financially. You could bring them both back. I mean, you're only going to keep 7 at most. I mean, Cam's not going anywhere. Benton's not going anywhere. I mean, you get to 7 pretty quick. So if you're going to take one, I don't think it's just a 7th-round flyer.
Right.
You know, I mean, he needs to be somebody that's going to make the team.
Yeah, it needs to be Tandre Sweat in the 2nd round.
Yeah, I like that.
If he's still there.
Which I would be very interested in. Yeah.
That position is one and I don't know what next year's.
I don't either.
I just keep track of the current one. Maybe next year's really deep in defensive tackles. I have no idea.
And it's very subject to change. I mean, quarterback is the one position you can kind of look ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to know it's a piece of information, but it can't change your opinion of what you do this year too much there.
Yeah.
You know?
And it used to be.
You'd like a young one to learn from Cam, though.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that's more of the added value of what Cam brings to your team is passing on the Steeler way.
Right. And you're also a little old on that side of the ball. Another young guy in the mix as opposed to, free agents or second, third contract guys. It could pay off long term.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to get weak there.
The interesting thing is we opened the show talking about the Ravens with Matt Williamson, who was, what was he, a third? Maybe
He was a day 2 pick. I think he was a third.
Yeah, I think he was a third. He really didn't blow up until this year.
Such a good we got talking and sidetracked, but when Max was talking about him, I thought, what a great example he is of a guy that is a project. People don't hate hearing the word project. Well, sometimes project is a little bit more. Whoa, look out. And just so coincided with having to pay him, that doesn't mean he's lazy and couldn't have blown out earlier. You knew you had a long investment.
But again, he was probably so much better than all the college offensive linemen he was in front of. He didn't have to learn that technique. Now he knows the technique and how to get by guys. Everything's collided.
Right.
13 sacks.
Yep. And he's
$20
really
million
good,
player.
They can't let him go. Right. I mean, he's worth that. I mean, he looks like a hit. I would pay him. I'd be my first priority if I'm the Ravens.
I bring him up because after 2 seasons, people are ready to give up on DeMarvin Leal.
Good point.
He's
a high pedigree guy too.
High pedigree guy. I don't know that we certainly haven't seen the best of him yet. There were flashes in his rookie season.
Yeah.
I think maybe he took a slight step backwards last year. But
part of it
was tough because
Benton
was there as well.
Yeah, and again, I thought Watt and Adams were very trustworthy veterans, knew their job, and Benton was the flat-out better player of the young guys. So Loudermilk and especially Leal are, to no fault of their own, well, partially their fault, are now at a career crossroads. I mean, that's just how this works. That you better put up now. I mean, Loudermilk came in the league 1 year before him, so they're not even guaranteed to make the team, but they could be the stars of camp too. They're going to get a lot of attention, a lot of action, a lot of reps.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's we tend to try to write the stories on these guys quickly. Everything's got to be now.
Yeah,
and that's not always the way that it works.
I mean, even Leal, if he could just be a third and long interior pass rusher, that has value. If he's super fresh and you bring in a hockey line of, you pull out a Benton or whomever that's played a lot down the 5-10 plays in a row, it's 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, bring in Leal and you're stunting him with TJ and doing other stuff. Like that in itself would have value,
Yeah.
Maybe that's his role. I don't know. But they need to figure it out. He needs to figure it out soon because 2 years have gone by and he hasn't played a lot of snaps.
Yeah. So, to me, I look at what happened with Geno Smith.
Yeah.
Couldn't play a lick. Hey, I was on that boat too. I mean, I'd seen enough of him in New York that
pretty shot.
He was pretty shot. He goes to Seattle and different guy.
Different guy. I mean, even Adams is a great example. Like
Montravius, same thing. Right. Montravius Adams. Like
he's
bouncing around the league. He's on practice squads.
Then he gets it. Clicks and understand how important technique is or whatever. The D-line is really fascinating to me. Ogunjobi, to me, is a good, not great player. Seems to be better when he plays less snaps. Like not that he wears out, but less is better with him, in my opinion.
30 snaps is better than 40.
Yeah. The quality per snap is better when it's 30-ish. But he's not cheap, and there's only 6 or 7 making the team. I don't know that he's a slam dunk going to run it back with them, but he's not bad either. I mean, he's valuable. I mean,
it's not like he's terrible.
No, not at all. I mean, he has a real role. I would hope Benton goes past him this year.
Yeah.
And I think he was on that pace. If you could add another one to be the next Benton, that's really attractive, but not at the expense of a corner or a center or, someone that you can't live with.
Yeah.
D tackle is probably my foggiest position to project.
Yeah. I mean, to me, again, I look at it with this draft, they have to come out of this with a cornerback.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's in the first round, whether that's in the second round, whether it's in the third round. I don't know that I'm going to be interested as much in a fourth-round cornerback.
No, I think it needs to be a guy.
I think it needs to be a guy in the first 2 days of the draft.
Yep.
And if you don't get that guy, you better have signed somebody in free agency, and that's not going to be cheap.
No, I mean, I think they better come out of the draft with 4, at least 3 defensive backs from free agency and the draft, probably in the top 4 rounds.
Yeah.
I mean,
And, you do the draft notes, the pre-draft notes that you put out. The Steelers, last four first-round draft picks have all been on offense, correct?
Yes. I mean, first 4 picks, Claypool was one of those.
Yeah.
First picks, not
yeah,
first
he was
round
a second,
picks.
yeah.
Because before that, it was like 9 years in a row defense.
9 years in a row defense. Well, now your defense is getting a little long in the tooth.
Right.
Your offense is super young.
Yes. I mean,
Now
they
you-
have some
you gotta-
real discrepancies.
You got to start flipping that a little bit this year.
Yes. I mean, they're second youngest offense in the league behind only Green Bay in terms of who played what snaps in 2023. One of the oldest defenses. There's about 5 that were older. And Patrick Peterson was your leading snap guy, and he's an older dude. I mean, he may not play a snap next year. He might play 50. He might play all again. Who knows? I don't know what his story is either. But that skews it a little bit. And as you mentioned, you start drafting your first pick overall offense time and time again. It's pretty hard to have a youth movement on defense. I mean, even if Benton and Porter play every snap,
Right.
you got to counteract the Haywards and Petersons, et cetera. You
Yeah.
don't want to get too old too fast there.
No, and again, that's where the expense comes into play as well. I hear a lot of people complain, well, the Steelers have one of the most expensive defenses in the league.
They do. Yeah.
They should be number one. That's not how it works.
It's not necessarily how it works. I mean, it also depends how you define most expensive defense. Is it your cap hit that day? Is it guaranteed money? I mean, is it – and you have Watt and Hayward and Minka. You want to pay those guys.
Yeah,
That's a
they're
good problem
they're
to
gonna
have.
eat up a large portion of that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have anybody on offense that offsets those contracts.
No. I mean, there's no rule you have to be 15th on offense, 15th on defense either. Right.
No.
I mean, you just win.
That's the idea, is to build a winning team.
And right now you have a cheap quarterback.
That makes your offense cheap.
Yeah. I mean, I know we love the centers in this draft, but I keep coming back to a veteran, fifth-year center, spend some money and some age on that side of the ball that might allow me to draft Sweat. You know what I mean? Because I'm out of the center market or something along those lines. To get you younger and cheaper on that side.
Yeah, I do think this year's draft for the Steelers will be more defensive minded in the first 2 days as opposed to offensive minded.
I definitely see defensive backs, maybe D tackle. We've talked a lot about maybe a linebacker.
Maybe a linebacker,
It
maybe
could
a safety. Who knows?
Yeah.
I just think that's where you go.
I'd be blown away if one of their first 3 picks was not a defensive back, and it could be 2.
Yeah.
Or if you include the 4th round, it definitely could be 2.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that's the way. The way it balances out. And oftentimes, if they have 7 picks, 4 will be on offense, 3 will be on defense, or 4 will be on defense and 3 will be on offense. I just think the way it works out this year is, I think you're the majority. It's 4 or 5 picks on defense.
Tend to agree. I mean, I think they will draft in offensive linemen.
Yeah.
I think they'll probably sign an offensive lineman. Third receiver is going to be maybe a Westbrook Akine or something like that we've talked about, or a 3rd, 4th round pick is my hunch. I think they're done at tight end. I think they're done at running back and quarterback. Who knows? So that leaves more spots on defense, especially the secondary.
Which, again, lines up well with this draft.
Exactly, and that's the whole goal. I mean, that's what you use these next couple weeks for, is to really play your cards right in the draft.
Yeah, set your board, set your plan in place.
Yeah. Take advantage of what they're giving you.
Yeah, because as soon as you get out of here, you got basically 2 weeks before free agency starts.
And then the world starts moving pretty quick.
And then things start coming along pretty quick. And
like safety's a position to me that's probably better addressed in free agency.
Yeah.
I'd love to get younger on defense, but there's a lot of safeties I like. It's not a great safety draft, but that doesn't mean the 4th rounder you wouldn't mind. You know?
I think ideally you find those guys in free agency, and the Steelers have always done a really good job of this. That guy who's coming off of his first contract, who's still 25 years old.
Yeah.
And you're going to get that full second contract out of him.
There's a lot of them. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of them, especially the safety position, that shouldn't be super expensive. A handful of them haven't made big money yet. You know, they're fifth, sixth round picks that are coming into their own, signed with a 2-3 year deal, something along those lines. And I mentioned I've been doing a lot more cap stuff lately. The Steelers have less guaranteed money committed going forward than any team in the league. They're 32 in contracts that are guaranteed money. You know, like Deshaun Watson's getting $64 million guaranteed this year. And
whether he
next
plays
year.
another down in the league or not.
Right. That's $64 million is way more than the Steelers have committed to their entire roster going forward. You know, so they're going to have a lot of freedom with contracts coming out.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah.
we're going to get to another break. He is the Matt Williamson. I'm Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here live from Indianapolis. We're here for the Scouting Combine. A lot of the general managers and head coaches took to the podium today. Of course, the Steelers missed out on that stuff today with Omar Khan's having some personal issue, and Mike Tomlin never talks here, so he'll talk in a few weeks at the owners' meetings. So we will be there for that. That'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
So a lot of little news and nuggets that came out from the different podium speeches. But
I have to catch up on those. I don't know what everyone's been talking about. So I've been on the air too much.
Only concerned with what we've been talking about. But we're going to get to a break. We'll be back with more here on Steelers Nation Radio and Fox Sports Pittsburgh right after this.
Black it.
Mike's hot.
Welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. We are live at the Scouting Combine here in Indianapolis on Steelers Nation Radio and Fox Sports Pittsburgh.
How about that?
How about that? And I mentioned some of those guys that spoke earlier today on the podiums. And Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell. It's Kevin O'Connell, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right. He said that he believes Kirk Cousins wants to remain a Viking.
Okay.
And they want to try to make that happen.
Okay. I understand that. I mean, again, this is lying season. I mean, the snippets I heard this morning, which I don't put any credence in whatsoever, is Justin Jefferson could be had for a ransom. The Vikings are already talking to New England about moving up to 3. They're an interesting organization because they've really straddled the fence over the last 2 or 3 years of rebuilding and trying to win now, which is really, really hard to do. And with some success, but then Cousins gets hurt. And, I think O'Connell's a really good coach. I would have a really hard time deciding what to do if I was that organization. You want to kind of go young, don't spend $30 million on the old quarterback, and try to get up to 3 or 6, 7, 8, whatever. I'm not saying you should ever trade Jefferson, but go young or try to win the North. I don't know what they should do.
I think it's a different discussion if they were in the AFC versus the NFC.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely more appealing.
Because in the NFC, with Kirk Cousins, they're in the mix.
They're in the mix, yeah.
Now, maybe they're not going to be the favorite.
Maybe only for a year or two.
Yeah,
right.
But they're not going to be the favorite, whereas if they were in the AFC, they might look at it and say, well, we got 9 other teams that we got to climb over top of here.
We need to think bigger. We need to rebuild bigger. Yeah, I mean, their infrastructure isn't great. I mean, they have linemen. It's pretty decent. They have pass catchers. And with Cousins, it should be a pretty good offense.
Yeah.
I mean, Coach Flores did a great job with the defense. It wasn't super talented. I don't know what they'll do. And if you're Cousins, would you rather take that routine or would you rather go to Atlanta or maybe – New England's not real attractive, but there's a couple spots you could see him be interested in. But that's probably your best chance to win if you're Cousins.
Yeah, I think so. And you're established there. You've been there a few years now.
Mm-hmm.
You're the guy.
You're the guy. And the injury clouds things, too. They know more about his injury than anybody else does. That's important. And maybe his market's not that hot right now.
Yeah, I just don't see him going anywhere.
I don't really either.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Raiders general manager Tom Telesco, he shut down trade speculation on Devontae Adams and said he's a Raider. We're not trading him.
See, I get that, but I don't think they're even close to competing. Like, I think trading Adams is the move. Like the opposite of the Deontay Johnson move we just had, the conversation we just had. Trade him while you still can because I don't think he's the difference in you winning or not. I don't know what their path to a quarterback is. More picks would give you more pass. I'm not saying they should tank, but I think they should build for the future in a big way. There's not many building blocks on that team besides Adams and Crosby.
Yeah. To me, though, I think, they're still a relatively new team in a new city.
Mm-hmm.
They're
new
still
coach.
trying to establish something in that new city. If you think back to the Steeler game there last year, and really every visiting team comes in there and takes over that stadium because it's a destination. You need somebody that you can hang your hat on. That was the whole reason why they went out and signed Antonio Brown when they did.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I make the mistake too much of thinking on how's the best way to win as opposed to how's the best way for this business to run in my new city and all those type of things where ownership has to balance it too.
If they don't have Devontae Adams, other than Max Crosby, who are they putting on the signs outside the building?
Yeah, right. That
are going to make people
a long year.
Walk away from the casino or walk away from the Biodome or whatever it's called out there and come to a game.
But I'd rather have a first and third round pick than Devontae Adams right now if I'm that team.
Or the Biodome. The pool or the pond.
He's just Adams is going to be a depreciating asset. And if you don't think you can win with him now, I would rather get picks.
I get it. At the same time, if you do happen, let's say you get let's say you take Bo Nix or the kid from Michigan, McCarthy.
Okay. In the first round.
Yeah, in the first round.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like him to have Devontae Adams to throw the football to?
Sure.
It makes his life easier.
It would, but wouldn't you rather Adams turn into a left tackle next year? That's cheap and, I get both sides.
Yeah, I understand that thinking, but again,
I'm not suggesting trade Crosby. I'm not saying blow it up. I just don't think there's any way they can compete this year.
They may look at it differently. They did beat the Chiefs this year. They've they
I
won
get there's
more
a lot of
games than I
buzz
think
with the
that
new
they,
coach.
Yeah.
And I just see it differently than they do, I think, to be very honest with you. I think they just don't have much talent.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, that's
And you could get a lot for Adams.
well,
but it
that's
could
like
also
your
be-
opinion, man.
Yeah, man. But he's also a great candidate for, let's say I'm right, and they start the season 2-6.
Right.
Well, then trade him at trade deadline.
But that's what
Yeah,
everybody
right.
said about like Mike Evans last year at the
Right.
trade deadline.
Right. And Tampa
Tampa
outkicked
held
their
on to
coverage.
him, and
Yeah.
they, and
They
I
had like the most dead money in the league, the least spending in the league.
didn't
and
think they were uber talented.
Right.
Now
And
they
they
didn't have the
squeaked
Kansas
it
City
out.
Chiefs in their division, but
True. I mean, they won a bad division, but they also won a playoff game.
I mean, I could sell a story in Vegas that, hey, we're in the same division as the Chiefs, but we're better than the Chargers. We're better than Denver.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I believe that, but you could sell that story.
Yeah.
Like we're the second best team in our division, looking for a wild card. Building something here with
We're
a bright
one
young head
Patrick.
coach.
We're one Patrick Mahomes injury away from winning the division.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
No, I hear you.
Look what happened with Burrow this year in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was
these things happen. I know.
That was a given that the Bengals were going to win the AFC North.
But I mean, what GM is going to go to the podium today and say, "Yeah, we're looking to trade Deontay Adams"? I mean, whether they are or not, they're not going to tell you those things.
Yeah, but they don't have to. I get it.
Yeah,
get
I
it.
don't know.
But
Any other big news pop today on the podiums? I know.
not a lot that I'm seeing here. Let's
Okay.
go look somewhere else here. But yeah, I mean, you're right. This is the time of year.
It's hard to believe everything you're reading this time of year. There's a lot of media people all in the same spot being sent here by their respective companies, being told the right stories, whether there's stories to be written or not.
Yeah. Joe Schoen said, we have to consider Daniel Jones' injury history when we plan for 2024. This is with the Giants.
That's not a screaming endorsement.
No, it is not.
No. I mean, I bet that they add another quarterback at
Yeah.
a minimum. I mean, I don't know if it'll be the first round, but I bet they take one pretty soon.
Yeah. Brett Veach with the Chiefs said, we have one tag, meaning you can only use the franchise or the transition tag. You can only use it once for the year. We anticipate probably using it.
You said Veach from the Chiefs?
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to use it on Snead probably.
They're going to use it. They can't use it
Can't
on
use
Jones.
it on Jones. There's only one other option.
Yeah.
So it sounds like Snead's getting tagged.
Yeah.
Okay. And we're going to start getting those things soon here, too.
Yeah.
We got Higgins yesterday, I think, right?
Yeah.
The running backs all were pretty much declared free. They're not going to get – Josh Jacobs didn't have a very good year, though. Like, I never
Not
thought he
enough
was a
to-
candidate to
yeah.
tag again.
No, that wasn't gonna
didn't make
happen.
sense. I could see
A
Saquon.
declining running back. Yeah, Saquon's much more valuable than Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, considering the way they played this past year, yes.
Eric DaCosta said about Odell Beckham, we'll assess and see what happens over the next couple of weeks. He's not going to be back.
I don't think he'll be back. I mean,
Certainly not at the price that they had him at. That was the worst contract given out this year.
I thought so too. And Matabuke is going to be very expensive. There is talk Stanley will be released. They got a lot of free agents though.
This one is interesting though.
Okay.
The Falcons are going to release Jonnu Smith.
He could be a Steeler. I wouldn't be upset with that. I think he's a quality player. I liked him back in his Tennessee days.
He's followed Arthur Smith around a little bit.
He sure has. Right. And if the Steelers plan on keeping 4, he'd be in the mix. I mean, he'll block a little bit. He's a decent receiver. I mean, I don't love him, but I think he's a contributor.
Yeah. I mean, if you want
He's
to
not
take
super expensive.
you want to look at it and say, okay, we're going to make Connor Hayward more of a true fullback.
Mm-hmm. I wonder why Atlanta's released him. He's not that big a cap hit. I mean, he's okay. I mean, they traded
Maybe
for
they
him.
viewed him as he's Arthur Smith's guy.
Or maybe it's going to feature Pitts like crazy.
Yeah. Which
I don't know.
would make fantasy owners everywhere happy finally.
Pitts is going to be linked to the Steelers a lot. Or Smith is going to be linked to the Steelers a lot.
Yeah.
Although I don't think there's a need for tight end.
You'll like this one.
Yeah.
The Browns and other teams have proposed pushing the trade deadline, the NFL trade deadline, back 2 weeks.
I think push it back. I still don't quite understand why there is a trade deadline.
Well, you have to have some kind of deadline because you don't want teams. What you can't have, because every league has a deadline,
Mm-hmm.
and that forces then the action.
Well, deadlines do breed
Right.
action, movement. But a guy's hurt from week 8 to 9, but he's probably going to be fine week 11, and
Well,
the
that's
trade
just bad
deadline's
luck.
9.
That's just bad luck.
It's just bad luck for the player in both teams because if there's a deal to be made, I don't know. The whole trade
I understand
deadline's weird.
because they kept it. They kept the trade deadline at the same spot
Mm-hmm.
when they went to 17 games.
Yeah, now the season's larger.
The season's actually longer than it used to
Yeah.
be. So why not push it back at least a week or two?
Right.
Because then more teams.
I'm definitely in favor of pushing it back.
I
know it's extreme to
but
say
you can't push it into December.
I still don't quite understand why there is one, to be honest with you. I know that's outside the way. Just because every league has a trade deadline, why does there have to be one?
Well, what you don't want to have happen is the Team B says, you know what, we're completely out of it. We're just going to trade away all of our good players, and the season's over now. We've gotten our season ticket money.
Yeah.
Everybody's that money's in.
I know that
the last month of the season, we're just not going to
I know the NFL despises meaningless games.
Yes.
And there would be a lot of them if the Panthers last year said we're just trading Burns and Chin and all the guys are going to be free agents, and we're just going to be horrendous.
Horrendous.
Yet they were still horrendous.
Well,
I mean, but maybe not the best example. But I just kind of look at it, and again, I understand it's somewhat unrealistic. But if Team A wants to give you a second-round pick for player B from Team B, why should we tell them no? Two teams want to do it. They're grown men.
There's a trade
adults.
deadline.
Yeah.
Do you have trade deadlines in your fantasy leagues?
I think there shouldn't be either.
There have to be.
Why?
Because okay.
I mean, as long as there's not collusion.
The league there's always going to be the thought of collusion because
if you're out of it and you're trading your garbage.
In our league, for example.
Yeah.
The league that we're both in together, the one league that we do that. My son's in the league with us, and one of our other owners, his son is in the league with us. There's not a collusion. Like I go to my son and say, "Hey,
I'm not gonna feed you anymore."
Yeah, give me
no more electricity.
Give me your
yet.
5 best players. I'll give you my 5 worst players. You're out of it.
Yeah, but the rest of the league should be like, well, we kind of see what's going on.
There's no vetoes though.
Oh, well, there should definitely be vetoes or some kind of commissioner power.
There should not be vetoes. You just said if two teams decide to make a deal, they're big boys. They can make a deal.
I guess fantasy's different because they're not real human beings, and it's a fantasy league. And if this team's eliminated, there is no motivation for next year. I mean, if it's like a dynasty league, that's different. Take all my old guys, give me all your young guys. I'm going to live for tomorrow. That I have no problem with. Different story though.
Okay.
But the fact that the trade deadline's getting bumped back, I think, is good.
Or at least talking about it.
Yeah.
We'll see if
I'm in favor of that.
Yeah, they would need 24 teams to approve that for that to happen. That would happen at the owners' meeting. So they'll give us something to look forward to at the owners' meetings next month.
I just don't know what the complaint would be. Like, who stands on the table like, can't possibly do that?
Yeah.
Why not?
Rand Carthen, the Titans
You guys had a good Titans conversation today, right?
Yeah, we did. He said on Derrick Henry, we'll be well-positioned to do whatever we need to do.
Do you think there's any chance he's back after the conversation you had? I don't.
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so.
I think that's a whole new turning of the page in that whole organization.
I see a lot of people looking at him and say, well, he's going to be a Raven.
I think there'll be 5 or 6 teams that will have interest.
I could see the Cowboys taking
Dallas
a run at
definitely
him.
one. Buffalo, they don't have any money, but Buffalo.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, but Buffalo can't sign anybody.
Kansas City.
Kansas City would be interesting.
If I'm Henry, I'll take half the price to go to Kansas City.
Yeah.
Pacheco's going to last like 4 more days. The way he runs. I mean,
he got hurt running into the bathroom.
Yeah. I mean, Henry was one of the best backs in the league at yards after contact. They gave him nothing, and he was a second-leading rusher in the league. I thought he was shot. Like, I want nothing to do with him in fantasy. Yeah. He's still really good.
Yeah. At some point, he's going to fall off.
Of course. But he's as freaky as they come, and he's not going to be expensive this year. Dallas is a great fit, even if he kept Pollard.
Yeah. If you're a Steeler fan, I don't think you want him going to the Ravens, so.
No. I definitely think that.
Yeah.
He would be a really good fit there, too. And if I were them, I would actively pursue it. But they don't have a lot of spending power.
Yeah, if you're going to spend $20 million on Matabuke, you're probably not going to be in the market for Derrick Henry.
They got a lot of free agents, too.
Yeah.
They're going to get hit a little bit.
They got more free agents, I think, than people realize.
Yeah, I could see them drafting one high.
Yeah, for sure.
Second-round pick running back, something like that.
Absolutely.
And both the running backs are up, Dobbins and
they don't have any running backs on the
Edwards,
roster right now.
Yeah.
You know, they're pretty bleak there.
Real bleak.
Yeah. Matt, that's going to do it for our
one
coverage
day in the
here
books,
today.
huh?
We got one in the books. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll start getting some player interviews coming here. We'll get some more.
I bet heights and weights will be coming out soon, too.
We should get some of that information out there. We'll have a little more to work off of here. We'll have a lot more to talk about. We'll have some more guests. We had plenty of guests today over the course of our, 8 hours on the radio? 7 hours? 7 hours.
7. Yep.
7 hours. We'll be back again tomorrow with 7 hours, starting at 9 a.m. Wesley Euler kicking things off here with Arthur Moats. He likes to do that. He likes those early. It's not super early.
He's a leadoff hitter.
and then we come in and clear the bases for him. But that's going to do it for our show today. So for my partner, Matt Williamson, for CJ back in Pittsburgh keeping us on the air, I'm Dale Lolley. We appreciate you listening to this edition of The Drive on Steelers Nation Radio and Fox Sports Pittsburgh.